Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for plenty of inspiration, encouragement, motivation and lots of entertainment. This is a big week in Ireland for triathlon, with the return of Ironman Ireland and the first ever Ironman 70.3 in Cork, along with the first ever Iron Kids in Ireland. It's going to be a bumper festival weekend of swim, bike, run and lots of fun. Over 4,000 athletes are registered to participate across the Ironman 70.3 and Ironman this Saturday and Sunday. So all roads lead to Youghal for what is going to be a superb weekend of racing in the sunshine. A big change from the monsoon-like weather endured at the inaugural Ironman Ireland in 2019. I'm like a big kid this week, giddy and excited to get to Youghal and to see everyone. That finish line is going to be awesome. If you are racing in Cork, be sure to find me and say hello over the weekend. If you missed the Ironman Ireland live webinar we held last week with race director John Walnut, Ironman Ireland 2019 champion Emma Billam and multiple national champion Hilary Hughes, you can check it out over on the Ironman Ireland socials. This past weekend I was in Swansea at the inaugural Ironman 70.3 and wow, what a weekend we had. Sunshine, blue skies, warm welcome, huge crowds and a great course which made for a superb race day. Alistair Brownlee and Kat Matthews took top honours, much to the excitement and delight of the immense crowd at the finish line, which was rocking all day long. Congratulations to all finishers. It was such a buzz being part of this inaugural event, and I think it's going to be a popular one over the coming years, so be sure to check it out. There's been some great results at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, the Para-Tri Series in Swansea, and the Paracycling World Cup in Canada. It's kind of hard to keep track of all the action taking place at the moment. It's so great to see things back in full swing and to see some of our podcast guests continuing to make waves and take home the silverware in their respective sports. Speaking about making waves, Damien Brown is now over 50 days at sea, rowing home from New York to Galway on the Atlantic Ocean. What started out as a two-man effort unfortunately hit a roadblock a few weeks ago, and he is rowing the remainder of the way home solo. Yes, solo. If you haven't been following his progress, be sure to check it out on Project Empower on the socials, and you can catch up with all of his adventure on the Deep Roots podcast. Ger Prendergast also gets a shout out in this episode for his superb success at the DECA UK last month. Guest on the podcast from May of 2021, episode 54, go check it out. He became the first Irish person to complete a continuous DECA, to complete 2 DECAs, and he also completed the longest triathlon by an Irish person and was the first Irish person to finish both a one-day DECA and a continuous DECA. Putting this into numbers, the continuous DECA saw him swim 38k, bike 1800k and run 420k over 9.5 days continuous. Well done, Ger and support crew, that is some achievement. I'm sure some Nuasan CBD muscle gel would have come in handy for Ger's recovery. If you haven't checked out the Nuasan range, then be sure to do so on www.nuasan.com. Use the code TTS15 to get 15% discount on your purchase. Now to this week's episode, which features Ultracyclist Patricia McGinley, who recently, pending ratification, set a World Ultracycling Association record for the first solo female to cycle from Mizen Head to Malin Head, covering 980 kilometres in 30 hours and 36 minutes. Taking up cycling and indeed ultracycling in very recent years, she has completed the Joe Bar 200 twice and the TJB Coastal 330, as well as taking on the Wicklow 200. She took part in the Donegal Ultra 555 as part of a 4-person team. No stranger to hills, hard cycling and long days in the saddle, despite only taking on her first solo ultra in 2018. Similar to the hills of Donegal, Patricia's training ground, her life before cycling was filled with massive ups and downs, but the biggest uphill battle for her was becoming sober and building a new life from the depths of depression and despair. In this episode, Patricia bravely shares some insight into her life, her resilience and courage shining through, the friendship, camaraderie and sense of purpose the whole new world of cycling has given her. It is no surprise that she simply loves being on her bike and part of such a supportive community. And in her own words, she says, cycling saved my life. This is a great episode. Now go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Patricia McGinley, welcome to Try Talking Sport. How are you?
I'm actually really good. Thank God.
Yes, Patricia, you cycled your bike for almost 30 hours and 36 minutes over the weekend as the first female to attempt the World Ultracycling Association record of cycling from Mizen to Malin in Ireland. Wow.
Yeah, tough going. Tough going.
Why is my first question.
Just always looking to just kind of go further, pushing yourself, seeing where the body will go, where the mind will go. Just have to keep moving forward.
What attracted you to this route in particular, to conquering the Mizen to Malin route?
Yeah, so Mizen to Malin has been kind of on my bucket list, as I would call it, for the last maybe 2 to 3 years. Just that iconic route in Ireland that, you know, every cyclist probably wants to do, or, well, I especially wanted to do it. And I remember about 3 years ago writing down, you know, getting the map out and, you know, trying to figure out where will I, you know, what sections will I go and where will I go from to so forth. And it's just as well I didn't follow that route because I'd still be on the road. But anyway, yeah, just always wanted to do it. And then Joe Barr said to me about a year and a half ago, why don't you attempt the Mizen to Malin? Told me about the World Ultra Cycling Association and the Mizen to Malin route that had never been set by any female. So that was me. The seed was planted and off we went.
Absolutely fantastic. So how long were you actually cycling for the 598k?
27 hours.
27 hours. So it's the cumulative time from when you started at 12 o'clock until you finished.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back and talk about the adventure and the expedition that it was. But before we do, I suppose I just want to set the scene for our listeners as to who you are and where you've kind of come from. I had the pleasure of being up in your neck of the woods last weekend at a family wedding up in Dunlow, in Donegal. So let's share your story with our audience. So where did this interest in cycling come from?
Yeah, I was sporty as a kid, and then when I was 17, moved to London. You know, just done all the usual mad stuff in London. Then I had a son, settled down, got married, and you know, the sport went out completely out the window. Like, you know, there was nothing. Might have went for the odd walk, you know, maybe thought about, you know, doing a 5k or whatever, like, but never really anything came of it. And busy just work and, you know, rearing my son and family life, and just started drinking too much. And one drink led to another drink, to another day, to a day, to a day, and the week just closed in. And yeah, just I'm a recovering alcoholic now, and in recovery 10 years. And from there, I decided to come home to Donegal from London, just purely seeking help. You know, my family were all back from London, living in Ireland. I was in London on my own, very much isolating, very much no purpose in life. You know, my son's growing up, and you know, the drink is really taking its hold on me, real grasp on me. And so I decided to come home and try and get some help.
And were you a functioning alcoholic? Like, were you still able to go about your daily tasks, or was it literally you just thought about drinking from one end of the day to the other?
Yeah, for the last, I'll kind of go back just to the last 10 years of my drinking. So for the first 6 of those 10 years, I was a functioning alcoholic, working, drinking on a daily basis, but continuously, you know, waking up in the morning. First thing I would rather get the bus to work than drive to work, purely because I could take a drink into my tea flask. And lunchtime was just go to the off license and, you know, get a quarter bottle of vodka, and that was my lunch. And, you know, couldn't wait then to get home from work and sit and relax with another little vodka. And yeah, just so I was, but still functioning, you know, and even, you know, when I think back on that and how much I functioned and worked, and, you know, it was a crazy way to live, crazy lifestyle, crazy, you know, just completely, totally alcoholic. And the worst part of that was not knowing, and not knowing how to get help, not knowing where to go for help, not knowing knowing that you had a drink problem, but just not knowing where to go or what to do about it, and not knowing that there was a solution out there. And that was just almost as bad as being an alcoholic for me. And then, so I, the last 4 years, then I had a pretty rough year in 2008. Was made redundant, and my father was ill and diagnosed with terminal cancer, so he had only a couple of months to live. I came home from London in 2008 to help look after him. That was the only part of those 3 months that I was at home. I literally did try to control the drinking so much, but purely because he was so sick. And that, for me, then I really realised how much of a problem I had with drink, because me trying to control the drink was, again, nearly as bad as, being completely drunk. I just had an awful time trying to control the drink, I'm constantly looking for it and obsessing about it and thinking about it. And again, still not knowing that you were an alcoholic, So that was a rough period. And then my father passed away in the August, and I went back to London. And when I went back to London, the drinking just completely blew out of proportion. Continuous drinking on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. Wasn't working. There was a recession in London, and there was no work. And just, life was hell on earth for those 4 years. And in 2012, I decided to come home to try and get help. And that's how I ended up back in Donegal.
How did you decide to come home, or how did you suddenly recognize that you had a problem, or did you know you had a problem?
Well, no, not at that stage. My son was living in Australia, and he had been out there for a year. And when he came home from Australia, I was supposed to meet him at the airport, and obviously I was too drunk to go to the airport. And he came in through the door, and he just took one look at me, and he just said to me, "Mum, what are you doing to yourself? What is happening to you?" So the shock of him kind of, saying that to me, and that was the first time I may have broken down and said, I have a problem with drink. And so he phoned my sister, and then we went to the doctors in London. And the doctors in London then basically they thought it was just purely depression at that stage, but I had known myself that no, this is far deeper than depression and a lot worse than that, So it was, I didn't find the answers that I was looking for, or at that stage I didn't feel as if the help that I needed was going to be there. And that's what kind of made me, it was my first little glimpse of, okay, I need to do something about this problem, and that was how it all started, with my son coming through the door that day, just taking one look at me, really overweight, big red face, big red nose, probably about 4 stone overweight, comparing to what I'd always been, like 8.5 stone all my life, and I was just completely blown up with alcohol. And that's where it all that was the beginning of the end, as I would say. Yeah.
And the beginning of a new cycle, pardon the pun.
Yes. Yep. Good one. Yeah, exactly. So came home in the February, I think it was February. It's kind of over and back, maybe, taking stuff over and back, and, just from February to April, and I was still drinking. Putting my family through a horrendous time. My mum just didn't know what to do with me, or, she didn't know what was wrong with me. I remember her saying to me, "Patricia, what is wrong with you?" And it was more the way she said it than, and how she said it than, it wasn't no tone of giving out or anything like that, but just a problem here and nobody knowing what to do about it, And, my attitude at that stage was still, I just need a drink. I just want another drink. And I continued drinking until I kind of got to the jumping off point. And that's hell on earth again. when you're there and you can't see any other way out, and you're thinking that the only way out is actually taking your own life, and going to that point, you're at your rock bottom and you're in a pretty bad place, and going from there then to within a week, I'd went to take my own life. I had a plan in place, went to do it, had a blackout, crashed the car, came home, and the next morning when I woke up, I went straight to the car, no keys, no money. My family had taken that all off me, and I went over to my sister's and asked her for the keys of the car, and she says, do you realise what you've done to the car? And at that stage, I hadn't a clue. It was a complete blackout, and I still was in desperate need of a drink. I hopped on an old bike that was at home and cycled 2k to the shop to buy a bottle of vodka. And I got the car back. I don't know how I got the car back or the keys back. Got the keys back, got the car back, and the drinking continued for another week. And again, at another jumping off point, and plan in place. And from there, I just call it through the grace of God. I went up home, I went into the kitchen, my mum and my sister's in the kitchen, and I just said, I need help. And it was just that fast. I just blurted out the words. Before I knew it, we were at the doctor's and in Letterkenny Hospital, and I was on drips, and my heart I was having heart palpitations. I just wouldn't have lasted much longer, So I was detoxed in hospital, and from there, I got into St. Junior's Court. It's like kind of a clinic, but it's a day release centre for alcoholics, and it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I'm still at home, but I travel out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'm doing good, and I'm starting to get sober. I have the drink down, but I still have all the cravings and the obsessions and everything else that goes with being an alcoholic, even though the lid's put on the bottle as such. But everything else isn't dealt with. There's nothing dealt with, So just literally the lid's put in the bottle. But I'm sober, and somehow I must, I'm talking complete brain fog, really dark place, not thinking straight. Diagnosed with any clinical depression. Not eating, not sleeping, not functioning. Just very bad place again, but I'm still sober at this stage. So I'm thinking on one hand, life is good. And on the other hand, I'm still an emotional, physical, mental mess. But I'm still sober. From there, with the depression, I really had to work on the depression side of things too. And I have to say, my psychiatrist at the time was very good to me and very helpful. And basically, it was so simple. He drew one line on one side of the sheet and drew another line on the other side of the sheet. He drew a line across the middle, drew a line down the middle, and basically told me that I had to fight my alcoholism on one side, my depression on the other side, and meet with both in the middle. That one wouldn't work without the other. I had to basically fight the two of them at the same time. So I have been given that piece of advice, and it worked for me. And it's worked to this day. Thank God.
How long ago was that, Patricia?
That's 10 years. I'm 10 years in recovery now, so it's probably all in all 8 years. I was probably about 2 years after I got sober. It wasn't an easy process getting sober, just, put it like that.
How did cycling come into your life then?
From the depression sort of side of things, I get into yoga. And I'm going to yoga 3 and 4 nights a week, and I'm loving yoga. So at this stage, I have I'm going to 3 or 4 meetings, and I'm doing yoga 3 or 4 times a week. So that's my life and that's my purpose. But that's all I had. And it just didn't feel quite enough. But the yoga finished in the May, as it does for the break for the summertime. And again, my sister says to me, probably seeing that this could be a slippery slope back the way, saying to me, what are you going to do now to fill those evenings that you've been at yoga? Why don't you come out for a cycle with me? And we go out for a cycle. It's I think it's a Thursday evening, along with a small group of a little club member, that our club that we used to have here, the Annagray Barstool Wheelers. Crazy name for an alcoholic, but anyway, I go out along with them one evening, and that was it.
You found a new purpose.
Found a purpose. Found another, just found something that the peace and the quiet. I could go on my own. Cycling, as they say, is quite a lonely sport in one sense, but I found peace in it, and I just loved it. Lots
of people talk about, with cycling, there's that sense of freedom and that sense of adventure and kind of being able to just let loose. I know you say it's kind of a lonely sport when you're on your own, but actually it can be quite meditative when you get into it and you're just at one with nature and your bike.
And exactly, and that's precisely what happened to me. Just looking around, just seeing the beauty that is around you, and kind of being connected in that sense. And I did call it a kind of a lonely sport, because I would have been on my own quite a lot, but then through that little group, I formed friendships with them, and ended up out in Mallorca. Another completely mad story. I'm not even cycling 7 months at this stage, and I'm out in Mallorca, cycling up Sacra Labra and thinking, how did I get here? It's just, it was mind blowing, and just the love I had for it then. Thinking, this is so good for me, and the friendships then, that I made, that through that small group, and that holiday. And I have to say, what blew me away too was every other cycler that I met on that holiday, complete strangers, be it at a coffee shop, having a coffee and cake, or just passing them on the road, a wave, and just hello, and where have you been today? Just a connection then with people that I'd never had, and that blew me away too.
I have written down here the word connection and community, and that's what I was going to say to you, was that a huge part of the whole thing was connecting with people. You've been, pretty much on your own for the guts of 10 years with the bottle as your friend, and now you were having this personal and social interaction and building a community of support around you, even if they were strangers. It was still a cycling community that was giving you hope.
And just, as you say, hope. Every day you went out, you were just getting a glimmer of hope, and just seeing, you're in Mallorca with a group of 10 people, thinking from, as you say, coming from that place of complete isolation, loneliness, thinking that you hadn't a friend in the world, and then going from there to, as you say, complete strangers saying hello to you. And that blew my mind away too. Just that small thing blew my mind away too. So.
And then I have to ask you, who convinced you to go ultra cycling? Because it's one thing to start taking up cycling as a hobby and to go off to Mallorca and have a bit of crack. We all do at Mallorca. I think you were in Lanzarote as well last year, you know, in November. How do you suddenly go from being a leisure cyclist and just enjoying this for the freedom and the fun that it gives you to suddenly being like, actually, I want to go do the Joe Bar 200 or the TJB 300 and then suddenly, oh, actually, let's try like the longest cycle in Ireland from Mizen Head to Malin Head. Where does it all come from?
Yeah, so again, it's just that kind of connection again with people. And, you know, so I come back from Mallorca and I'm still doing my cycles. I'm doing 30Ks, 50Ks. I'm out quite often because I'm enjoying it. And I see a lot of, you know, locals on the road and things like that. At the time, you know, I wouldn't say I would have known him really well, but, you know, I knew he was, his name was Kenny Gillespie. I had known his wife. And Kenny had just done Joe Bar 200. And I'm looking and learning and you know, learning all about cycling. You know, somebody said to me the word cadence. I hadn't a clue what it meant, like, you know. And I've seen this word called century. And that kind of was like, what's that about? Like, you know, I read about it. So I said, oh, I'd like to do that. And this is the kind of person I am. Like, you know, I'm not afraid of challenges, like, you know, but anyway, so I go to Kenny and I say to Kenny, yeah, do you know, you've just done Joe Bar, congratulations. And I would love to give that a go. Do you think I'd be fit to attempt it next year? And Kenny was a key part, and as I would call, in my recovery or me getting more into cycling, because his first word was yes. And that's what I needed to hear. You know, that positivity, that, again, that a connection with people, but the positivity. And, you know, that Joe Bar had just finished, so I had a full year to train for the next one. So I came home and I said to my sisters, I'm doing the Joe Bar next year. And that was it.
Did they think you were correct?
Exactly. So I got a lot of strange looks and I kind of got, oh, okay. And one of my sisters went, right, that's grand. Again, that positivity, which I needed badly. But so about 10 minutes later, I went out to make a cup of tea and she came out and she went, are you serious about doing this Joe Bar? And I went, yeah, I'm doing it. And she went, well, if you're doing it, you're going to do it properly and you're going to train for it and we're going to help you. And that was it. So I started training for the Joe Bar 200. I think that was in 2018. And from 2018, getting out to the start line at Joe Bar. And now you're talking about this wreck of a person who's trying to come out of her shell, who just is, how do you describe it? Like, I'm good days, bad days, you know, the good days are great, the bad days are bad. And, you know, I have the cycling, I have still got the yoga and, you know, and I'm on the start line of Joe Bar. And I am probably taking anxiety attacks at this stage. And how I didn't take one, probably because the two girls were there along with me. And then I met Gillian and the friendliness, just again, that connection with people, I suppose, and got through the scrutiny. And the next day then woke up in the morning I think my start time was 7 o'clock in the morning. And whatever time I got up at, Storm Hannah was there. And oh my God, it was like, you know, it wasn't down to me whether I was going to cycle it or not. The race was literally nearly called off. And then they decided that there was a delay in the race for the storm to see would it calm down a little. And so I think there was an hour's delay in the race and we started then at, I think it was 8. I had a start time then of 8. And that was me, pedal through Storm Hannah, you know, and took me a long time. The Lantern Rouge, as Jill calls me, endured the most. You know, but I finished it. And there was a girl there, you know, so I met another cyclist, Linda O'Brien, and met her and she waited for me. You know, she's come first and she's waited over 2 hours for me and cheered me over the line and just, you know, the applaud you get when you land home, and it's your first big one, and you're just thinking, wow, loved it, loved every minute of it in a storm. Wow. But crackers have to be. So yeah. And then, you get home then and you get your recovery done, and you're thinking, okay, I've done it in a storm. I'm going to try it again next year. Please God, the weather will be better and I can maybe better my time. And that was it, So the aim of the second Joe Bar was purely just to see, could I better my time? Still the same distance, still the 200. And because of the storm, I thought maybe I could, better my time. And then again, same sort of process, meeting, all the rest of the cyclists through scrutiny, people saying hello to you, just complete strangers coming up and saying hello to you. Just was amazing, fabulous, and then there was Denise Malloy and Kelly Farrell. I remember talking to Kelly just before the race, and she was saying to me, you done it last year, any tips, any advice? So just told her the little bit I knew about it, like, where to try and be cautious and, where to let rip and, things like that. And became friends with Kelly then on Strava, and, again, a whole new world, for me. And yeah, bettered my time and again, loved it. So the following year then I'm thinking, I just happened to look at, the 3 different races, and the 330 is there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that is the whole perimeter of Donegal. It cycles, you pass Mullidoff, my home, where I was born and bred, my playground, my stomping ground. The timing station is literally a pub that my sister owns down the road. And I'm just thinking, I have to do this. This is just, this is the one, And of course, I'm full of self-doubt, and it's a big jump. And, I'm thinking, oh, have I it in me? My fuel at that stage my fueling strategy was horrendous. Purely kind of from the depression side of things, like, wasn't a great eater and things like that. So then I took Gillian Winnie on board I asked her, would she help me out with nutrition? Of course, she said, yeah. And from there, just completely knew me through food, I have to say, just that again was just mind blowing for me, like, from someone that didn't eat to someone now eating 5 meals a day. I've never felt hungry in my life, I have to say that, to within 3 weeks, my body looking for food at, Pacific times of the day, wondering, like, why am I not being fed? Just, you can, and it's so true, you can only call it like your body is awakening and it's looking for energy and nutrition and fuel, and that whole side of things kind of blew my mind too. When I asked her to, help me out with the food, she asked me how I got through the previous 200s. And literally, so I told her it was on smoothies. So my first 200s where I had about maybe 20 odd smoothies with me. She just, you can imagine, a nutritionist, and she's listening to this. And she's saying, no, you got through it with Tranness.
With which?
Tranness. I was so tran, just wouldn't give up, and yeah. So anyway, I've taken her on board, and I have a friend, Jim, who I met in Mallorca, and his son is a coach, Sean. Sean has given me a training plan, and I start training for the 330. And that's me. First 330 is in the bag.
And I think you were the only female rider in the 330.
Yeah, again, crackers. Yeah, I was the only 330, and that didn't put me up or down, It's again the love of cycling, just that freedom, and I kind of, my whole attitude on that 330 was purely just to finish it. to cycle the perimeter of Donegal, my home county, and just to finish it. No time, no speed, no nothing.
It was a bit like coming full circle, the fact that the connection with Donegal was so close to home. He had looked back 10 years previous, it was such a different situation, a completely different person, completely different life.
Yeah, just it's almost like, living two different lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's my whole, just cycling Donegal. It was just, I can't, it's very hard to describe, It's
very flipping hilly.
Oh, it is. There's hills and more hills and just more hills. Yes. Yeah, it is very hilly.
You've also done the Wicklow 200, haven't you? And you were part of a team for the Donegal Ultra, if I'm not mistaken.
I was. We done the 555 as a team of 4 of us. So there was me and my 2 sisters and a friend of mine, Alan from England, from Newcastle. He came over to do it. And I think we frightened the life out of Alan with the hills. But we done the Wicklow 200, yeah.
So you must like the hills then?
I do. I'm not much good on the flats. I do. I love a hill. I love a hill climb. And I think I found that out in Mallorca when I done Sacralabra. And, I thought, oh, God, I loved it. And I do like a hill. And you can't escape them in Donegal, so...
Absolutely not. Now, before we talk about Mizen to Malin, I just want to ask you, you mentioned at the start when you were talking about the time you were drinking, that the kind of the traits that were there were that you were obsessive over, what you were doing. Have some of those spilled into the cycling? Do you get obsessive about the food and the cycling now, or are you able to manage that? Is that part of you hidden away now and gone?
I would say now there's still a lot of that trait in me, and I'm kind of one of those people that once I'm focused, I'm sort of focused, and I can't see nothing sort of coming in from the left or the right. And I'm a bit like that. And I suppose in one sense it was good to maybe for the endurance side of things, and to actually literally stay on the bike, even just for the training, you focus on your training, you have to do it, you're not going to cycle any of these events or finish them if you don't put in the work, not saying it is hard work. And again, I would probably have that a bit of addictive kind of personality trait, and if I like something, suppose good or bad, that's just me.
Coming back to the Mizen to Malin, how did you train for the event? What were you doing? What sort of sessions? And then how did you fuel those sessions? Obviously, when you're doing a lot of long distance endurance stuff, you need to get the fuel into you properly.
Mm-hmm. The training plan, I had a training, Sean Gallagher was my coach, and Sean gave me the training plans, and literally I was doing 2 shorter hits in the week, 1 hours, maybe cadence, and 1 maybe strength and endurance, and then I was doing 2 long ones at the weekend, 3 to 4 hours on a Saturday, and maybe 4 to 5 hours on a Sunday, and staying in zone 2. Everything as much as possible apart from the hits. I had 1 longer ride on a midweek on a Wednesday, but all zone 2, everything zone 2, purely because you're not using every ounce of energy in your body, and that you're not going to burn out. And then your my 2 hit sessions, so that was basically my training plan. And of course then as the time would get nearer to the race or whatever, the event, you would up the weekend cycles, from 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours. Didn't go over sort of 6 hours, because basically he knows that I can stay on the bike from my previous 200s and the 300, that I can literally, I'm mentally focused to stay on the bike. But it's fueling the body and keeping enough preserves in the body and enough carbs in the body that, and I'm not burnt out from on Saturday cycle, that I can carry enough over for the Sunday cycle. And that was my training plan. It worked for me. Yeah. And then the fuel, I had Gillian, I had an on-off bike nutrition plan. It took me a while, I have to say. We'd actually given ourselves 2 months to try and waken up the body. Because like I say, I'd never felt hunger in my life, didn't know what that feeling was. And then all of a sudden, one day just going, my body's looking for food, and I'm going, oh my God, what's this? What's this feeling? It's a completely new feeling to me. In the beginning, it took a lot for me to actually digest the food, to put the food into my mouth and digest it, But, it's almost like breaking an old bad habit, just learning over again. I suppose it's that learn, unlearn, relearn, and, and that's what I had to do.
What sort of foods were you eating then when you were training? Were you eating on the bike all the time as well?
No, you see, I'd never done that either. And it's something I'm just now starting to work on, because I would come off the bike and just literally have a can of Coke and a Mars bar, or, I was like going back now then to eating properly. So, starting in the morning and, just getting the oats into you, the porridge into you. Because I was such a bad eater, eating small and frequent. And so I would eat my breakfast then by sort of 10:30, 11. I was eating a boiled egg with a bagel. Then my lunch was basically, chicken, rice, then going to a midday snack and your dinner, and then an evening snack. And for me, in the first, say, month, that was like, oh my God, horrendous amount of food altogether. What I would have ate for the first half of the day would have done me for 3 days beforehand. That was a whole new ball game for me altogether, But again,
hard to get your head around that.
Very, yeah. You're going from, my lowest weight was, I was 6.5 stone, and not a muscle on me, just skin and bone. I can't imagine what Gillian and Joe and, the rest of the team there, when they seen me pulling up the first day at the car park, thinking, where on earth is she going, or what does she think she's going to do? I just can't picture what they would have thought, But, a few years later, and yeah, I'm thinking of doing Mizen to Malin.
So talk to me about Mizen to Malin. I know you had some low lights in the sense of you came off the bike in Tipperary on a railway crossing, and there was a chance that maybe you wouldn't be able to get on the bike, but you had a quick check over, you had the bike checked over, and you got back on it and completed it. So I imagine that was one of the low lights maybe of the trip for you. Was there any other point where it was really difficult, or that you might have considered giving up, or was that even an option?
No, never an option. Never an option. I mean, even when I was on the ground, I was very dazed. I was in a little bit of shock, I suppose. And, whatever way my knee was sort of turned out the way, or it looked as if it was turned out the way, my son saying to me, Mum, I think this is over for you. I think one of them was about to call 999. And I'm going, but, suppose that's the shock of it. I don't feel hurt. I'm grand, just get me up and I'll be fine. And so I'm fine. Move one arm, move the second arm, move each leg, get back on the bike, and away I go again. Yeah, so. And
you have a fine shiner.
The cheekbone took a lovely shiner. Yeah, but look at these things happen, It wasn't, I wasn't hurt. I was more in shock, and it wasn't enough for me not to carry on,
And you had horrendous weather as well, which couldn't have been any more difficult, really. I think of Storm Hannah, but then you actually had horrendous rain and wind and just conditions.
We got up to Mizen and it was raining. But at that stage, it was just like a sort of fine, misty rain, that mizzle, that drizzle, and I thought, oh, gosh, this is fine, it's warm, it's, apart from the rain, it's warm, the temperature's good. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, the rain will be off in an hour, and, I'll be fine. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And I think it rained for over 18 hours continuously. The rain, and it's, I have to say, just the rain, and thank God, because the temperatures were high. If the temperatures had been any lower, there's probably no physical way I would have been fit to finish the race.
And what was your cycling strategy for breaking down the 598k? Was it literally get on your bike and cycle for as long as possible, or had you planned stops and breaks?
No, I checked the weather. I had my, like I said earlier, I'm trying to work on staying on the bike. So literally I think I had 1 night set of clothes and 2 day set of clothes. And that was kind of emergencies. As far as I was concerned, I wasn't changing. If I had to for nighttime, that was it. Looking back now, emergency clothes, I hadn't enough emergency clothes, or Irish weather, didn't predict it, that it would be that bad. So anyway, no, my main goal at that stage was I'm getting on the bike, I'm eating on the bike, and I'm not getting off the bike literally until I need a pee. And that's it. And when I need a pee, I am going to do everything else that's required when I have the pee. And that was my plan. The way I get through it is I sort of break it down into stages. And at this stage, I had it broke down, from bigger stages as first. I always break it down into kind of a half and then a quarter and then 100k, 50k, 25, and I have to take it back to 10k if I have to take it back to 10k. And that's exactly what I had to do. I had to break it down from town to town, purely because of the rain. The first 300k were absolutely amazing. Cycling in the rain, and I was buzzing, just probably like a child out playing in the rain, and loving every minute of it, even though it's torrential rain. And I'm thinking, sure, I'm wet now. There's no point changing. I'll be wet again within 5 minutes. And yeah, I keep cycling, and then I had to fall. So when I had to fall, I'm changing now, and I'm getting into it's nighttime. I'm getting into my nighttime gear anyway, and that whole process of changing clothes. But it was then that I realised just how cold I was. I'm wet. I'm soaked for 14 hours. The fingers are numb, and the gears are hard to change. The feet's getting numb and things like that. And you literally get, you've had the fall, I've had the shock, and get on the clean clothes and the dry clothes, and you get that, oh my God, that lovely sense of feeling, that warm, cuddly feeling. And I thought, oh my God, this is heaven. And literally just get back on the bike, and that keeps me going then for the next amount of hours, but within 10 minutes, literally drenched again. And it's almost, you're thinking, have you not got no good cycling clothes? Yeah, I do. But it's literally coming off the ground and it's soaking me from the feet up. So when it's raining in Ireland, it's raining in Ireland. And that's it.
Did you sleep at all over the 30 hours?
I had 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yes. I had 10 minutes in Enniskillen. So I had a hard old time of it from Athlone, from that section from Athlone to Enniskillen. It's nighttime hours. I'm soaked. I'm literally drained now with the rain. It's, you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh, this, if I make it, I am going to be so lucky, you feel like you're climbing Everest, and that I've had to go out and do it today. It's probably a flat road, but it was a tough section, I have to say, from Athlone to Enniskillen. So when I get to Enniskillen, we decide change of clothes, hot food, tea, sandwich, just a complete kind of overhaul. And then I said, I think I'll take 10 minutes. I would rather kind of sort of say, I'd not waste the 10 minutes. I thought the 10 minutes would be more beneficial to me. I thought it would maybe give me some energy back to carry on to get from Enniskillen to Malin. And so I took 10 minutes, complete shut eye.
And did you actually sleep?
No. No, but you kind of, I kind of go into a meditative state, and, it does me maybe even better than sleeping. The head is sort of, you're really, I'm as deep as a sleep as, I'm nearly there.
Yeah. And what were the crew doing then to try and keep you motivated, between that section from Athlone to Enniskillen, keep you awake, keep you moving forward?
Do you know what? The crew just are completely amazing. Like, between singing, shouting, roaring, laughing, just the G on, it's just, there's never a dull moment with them, never a dull moment. And yeah, I have to say, there's a lot of singing that gets done. Trying to sing.
Or trying to sing, yeah. And if you were to pick a couple of highlights from the Mizen to Malin spin, what would they be?
Oh, obviously getting finished. The main one. Highlights. What there was some. I couldn't tell them. There was a lot to do with pee stops. There was some brilliant laughs, just what happens kind of on the, that length of distance, over 30 hours, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of low points and, never thinking to yourself that you're not going to finish, but just grinding and pushing on, and it's tough then on the body, you're sore, you're aching, you're just looking for the finish line at that stage. And thank God it came.
Would you do it again?
Of course.
I wasn't expecting that answer.
You see, that's me, and that's, I get off the bike and I say, don't ever let me see your bike again. But it's Thursday today. I know by Wednesday I'm always right and back in, as I would say, my head right. But, I'll start thinking, within a week, I can guarantee you within a week, I'll be looking at those times and splits and things like this in the fall, and I'll take everything into consideration. And my next one will be, I'll say to myself I could try and better that time. Yeah, I can try and better that time. And so that's why I wouldn't say, no, I wouldn't do it again.
And have you been on the bike since the weekend?
No, not yet. The body is great. That's probably why I can answer the question the way I'm answering it. I'm very, very surprised at how well I actually am feeling. Like I say, Monday I was very sore, very tight. Done a lot of yoga since. Been to the Tide. A lot of hot baths. So the body's good. But I have 2 nice bruises just underneath the sit bones. And that's I'll wait another day or 2 for those to heal before I sit in the bike again.
And coming back to the question about doing it again, if you were to do it again, what would you do differently this time around?
See, that's the thing with endurance racing. You can never prepare for everyone I've done now. There's a different how do you say it? There's a different mental strategy. There's a different, there's almost like a different fight with everyone, or maybe fight isn't the right word, but I'll call it fight. So basically, say one of the Joe bars I done, right? Now I had an awful time in my head, thinking I had to basically eat the elephant in really small chunks that race. This time I didn't have to eat the elephant. I basically put him to bed straight away because I had to fight the weather. And when you've one fight in your hand, one is enough. You don't need a second one. You don't need to be saying to yourself, I'm not going to make this. I'm not. There's just no point trying to take that on board. You're just wasting more energy that you can be using for the bike. So, yeah, every one of them is completely different. And that's, again, why I say, yeah, I would probably do it again.
And are you completely hooked now on ultracycling?
Love it. Completely love it. Yeah. Like I say, it takes me those initial, 1 or 2 days, and, you're tired and you get your sleep and the body's recovering, and, you're thinking, okay, I've just done this, and, and more so maybe this one. I didn't realize until kind of after I had it done that I'm actually a world record holder. That had to be kind of sort of drilled into me. And I suppose this is how I'm maybe finding it easier to talk about, my story or my life, that one of Martina said to me just before we left Mizen, her last words to me were, look back to 15 years ago and, just see where you've come from. And that was it, And so when I look back and just think to, what could have been and what is now, it's just a different world.
And are you proud of everything that you've achieved to date?
I am. I can say that now. I am proud. Yeah. I love my life now. I'm looking forward to the season starting with the RWB girls again. I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road. It's just that whole new connection with people and, just where life is to take you next, what is next,
You've been given a second chance at life.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. Completely. Yeah.
So aside from getting back on Zwift and getting back out on the road and maybe getting back on your bike, maybe tomorrow or Saturday, what is the next big challenge that you're going to do, or have you decided yet?
I haven't decided yet. No, I haven't. I have a few in floating around, but haven't taken anything on. Just get back into training, and for me, if it's a kind of an ongoing process now. For me, I look at it like, if I'm not on the bike, I'm not fueling properly, I'm not looking after my body properly. I think at this stage now, what I've been given and where I've come, at least my body deserves that much. I deserve to give myself that much. So yeah, just looking forward to the season starting with the girls and the racing league and RWB, and and I absolutely hate those sprints, but yeah, I love the crack. I love the girls. Just the way my brain worked. The wee avatars, 2 years ago, I didn't even think they were real people. And just a whole new world again. Yeah.
Well, Patricia, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. And as I mentioned before we came on air, I had no idea of your background and your life story when I contacted you to chat on the podcast. I literally just wanted to talk about cycling and your adventures. So thank you so much for being so open and honest and brave, I suppose, is the word that I want to use. And I wish you every success for the future.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. Pop by and say hi and let me know what you think of the show. If you're new to Try Talking Sport, please do check out some of our previous episodes. You will be both impressed and inspired by our guests. Finally, be sure to sign up to our e-zine featuring articles of interest, some great discounts and the inside track on supporting your triathlon and endurance sport journey wherever it may take you. Sign up on www.trytalkingsport.com. It takes 30 seconds and I promise I won't bombard your inbox with emails, just the important stuff. Until next time, stay safe, keep smiling and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.